So now that we know this, what can we do? I read a quote somewhere that really resonated with me, and I thought it would tie in nicely for today's session. If we include our children, it might slow us down, but maybe that's the point. So I know there's a lot being put on all of our plates, especially as of late since post-pandemic, catching up with test scores, hoping our food vendors don't surprise us with any more stock shortages, right? And just everything else going on in our personal lives. But it's also important to take a moment to slow down and be present with our children so we can take what we know and what we currently have, take a spin with it, and create a more impactful and fun lesson for both ourselves and our students. So there are four main different learning styles. There's auditory, which is more lecture-based, kinesthetic, which is more hands-on, visual, right? And then reading and writing. The best way to teach is to encompass a combination of most, if not all, of the learning styles so that each student can have a chance to learn in their own way. Lessons combining these styles will give more of an impact of the objective that you're creating and creating lasting memories. If you recall from my first session, I shared the story of my kindergarten days where my teacher brought in the carrot juice and the blue pancakes to teach us the concept of colors. I remember we had stations where we would take the carrot and help to blend it in a smoothie, and we would physically mix up the pancake batter together, which was really fun. And I still remember it to this day. So in that lesson, we were utilizing kinesthetic learning and visually taking in the colors of the carrot and mixing of the blue pancakes. So garden-based activities can also help to accomplish that goal. Here are some photos of me teaching a class on a field trip to a hydroponic greenhouse at one of the schools at my previous jobs. So I'm actually embarrassed to admit this, but this was my first time holding a garlic plant with the stem intact to the bulb and seeing a rose on top of it. I've never seen that before, and frankly, I didn't even know that it was actually called the stinking rose. But it was a lot of fun sharing what I just learned to the students because it was all of our first time seeing a budding flower on a garlic. So you can see here I shared the different parts of the garlic plant with them, and they all got a chance to pass it around, feel it and smell it. And of course, our favorite sensory activity is tasting. So it was amazing to see the students' reaction to where the food came from, to how it looks in its original form, to using it to cook and make into a delicious and nutritious recipe out of. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to get photos of the dish before the students ate all of it, but it was really, you can tell it was really popular. We made Swiss chard pasta with garlic. And it's funny, one of the students that I'm handing it to now, he told me he wasn't going to try any because he didn't like vegetables. But at the end, he kept asking me for seconds, even thirds. So very, very great way to incorporate food and nutrition and gardening all in one. So that was one example of the many ways we can bring in farm to school. Farm to school activities provide students with access to healthy local foods, as well as education opportunities such as school gardens, cooking lessons like you saw that I had done, and farm field trips. So I encompassed all three of those. The three components of farm to school are procurement, school gardens, and education. This is the state profile for California recently done this school year 2018 to 2019 with farm to school participation at 70.7%. You can find out more about how your state is participating in the farm to school program at the link provided below the table. The link and other resources will be provided for you at the end of this session. But let's not forget about the education component of it. It's not enough to just enforce the rules of taking a fruit or vegetable at the salad bar. We have to educate them why in order for them to appreciate and understand it more. So here are the latest statistics on farm to school education implementation in California. For the purpose of this session, let's focus on how we can utilize more use out of the USDA Team Nutrition materials. So as you recall, so now we're getting into the classroom connection part. As you recall from my first session, I shared the Team Nutrition in the Classroom pilot program that I did at Lenox Middle School. All of the Team Nutrition resources available online for the public and for free can be adapted to your own lesson. So I adapted the Dig In Lesson 6 Nutrition Voyage from Farm to You into a gardening in the classroom lesson. These lessons will also be shared in the resource document for this session. So here's more of a visual to see how that lesson would look like in the classroom.
Once you've mixed around your dirt, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to open up your seeds. You're going to you can rip this inside a plastic bag. Open up the plastic bag and there's a bunch of seeds in there. You're going to dump the seeds in, and you can even just use your finger and push the seeds in a little bit and then cover it up with the dirt. You don't need to go like way down deep in there, but just kind of push it in a little bit and then cover it. All the seeds, just sprinkle the seeds all around. You'll put in all of it. And then after you plant it, you're going to take your stick. I have different markers. You're going to write on the package, it says what your herb is. You'll write your herb, you'll put the date, and then you'll stick it inside your dirt. Then, so you can transport it, take it with you home, you're going to pick a bag from up here. You're going to get this saucer, take the saucer out, put the saucer in and make it nice and flat, right? Like, see how it's angled right here? So I'm going to center it in my bag. And then once you center it in the bag, then you can just put this in there, right? And then once you have it in there, there's ties and you can tie it off. And then you get to take it home. How empowering it is to grow your own foods. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to grow our herbs. And here's one of the things you'll be able to then do. Is you'll be able to cook with this herb once it grows. It's what you want to do with herbs. It's meant you can eat with them. Some people use them to decorate presents, like rosemary. I have a friend who does that, sprigs of rosemary. They smell pretty. You can decorate your food, right? With that, people use it for that. Some use it for medicinal purposes.
Isn't that neat? So there's going to be 2 lucky winners that will win this exact herb indoor garden kit at the raffle at the end of this session. So you can have your own herb garden to inspire your class. One of the students sent over a picture of his dill to us earlier this week. It's amazing how much it's grown this much in a little less than a month. So just think of the growth we can do together with the students by incorporating more consistent lessons like this throughout the school year. And I know I showed the example of the hydroponics, but I mean, you can start small with an indoor garden kit like I did with Carrie Ann's class. You can also have students learn about the herb. You can showcase that same herb like this dill right here at the main school office or anywhere that receives light. You can also use it as a science project to log and journal the plant's progress. With this, you can teach concepts on photosynthesis, right? Talking about chlorophyll and all of that. And now that we're talking about classroom connections, you can apply it to other core subjects as well. There's also storybooks on gardening that can provide standard-based learning for students while promoting literacy. Mancha 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 by Candace Fleming is a fun read-along book to incorporate for the younger students. And it's also a great way to showcase storybooks on gardening to promote fruit and vegetable consumption as well. So incorporating gardening and nutrition education concepts can be adaptable and seamless, as we learned from my first session. Here's an example being done by a 2nd grade music teacher. So watch as he incorporates children's literature into his music lesson. with Muncha Muncha Muncha.
Hi everybody, Will Doublestein here, and today I'm joined by a group of second graders, and we're going to be performing for you a picture book called Muncha Muncha Muncha. And I was inspired by an article I read from Michelle Brinkman, who's a wonderful elementary music teacher right here in Indiana. And these students and I have put together a little adjustment on that lesson that includes some improvisation. Kids, are you ready to show them how we do it? Yeah! Okay, I hope you all enjoy this. Muncha, muncha, muncha. For years, Mr. McGreely dreamed of planting a garden. He dreamed of getting his hands dirty, of growing yummy vegetables, and of gobbling them all up. But he never once tried it until this spring, said Mr. McGreely. This spring, by golly, I'm going to plant a garden. So he hoed and he sowed and he watched his garden grow. Lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes. Yum, yum, yummy, said Mr. McGreely. I'll soon fill my tummy with crisp, fresh vegetables. But one night, when the sun went down and the moon came up, 3 hungry bunnies appeared. Tippy, 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 tap. Muncha, muncha, muncha. 2, ready, go.
Isn't that cute? I mean, that can be like a lullaby, I think. They're just so like, they have such a way. And also super inspiring. We can also use gardening to cultivate language. I'm the first in my family as a first-generation Vietnamese American. While I was born here, English was not my first language. So I remember being shown vocabulary words that I struggled with. But funny enough, I got all the food ones right. We all heard of food as a universal language, right? So if we can grow our food, then does that not mean that gardening can also be a medium for teaching languages, specifically English for English language learners? Research finds that ELLs learn best from instruction that is meaningful, authentic, and contextual, and that uses hands-on interactive learning and activities. So gardening as a medium of instruction reflects these same principles. Not only will it promote literacy, but can also help to form engaging connections with your English language learner. With the language barrier, it is hard for students to open up. I remember being very shy, but not so much because that was my personality. Like if you know me, I'm not shy, but because I didn't know what to say or was afraid of saying something wrong and being made fun of for it. So an activity like gardening could bring the class together as a fun group activity. Learning a new language can be daunting, so let's create a more positive environment that lets learning flow more naturally with engaging instructions in the garden. A teacher from Michigan shared her lesson on gardening with ELL students, saying that students who are shy find their voice, and students who struggle with their speech or to find the English words start to relax and try and succeed in communicating their interests and joy. And they can find that through gardening, which also utilizes kinesthetic learning, and it helps to form connections and camaraderie. Ron Finley in the video in the beginning stated that gardening is the most therapeutic act you can do. I mentioned before, gardening is a great way to explore social and emotional learning, and it's a great way to incorporate physical activity at the same time. Sycamore Canyon in California, which is about 2 hours north of LA, uses gardening to teach students about life skills and real-world problems.
We are making wicking beds so that we could conserve water. Since California is in a drought, we don't want to have to waste any water, so the wicking beds are the most water-conserving garden.
It will have a pond in the bottom, and then the plants will be able to get it by themselves and not have us do it.
Instead of pouring water on top, it goes to the bottom, and if you pour water on top, it wastes water because it evaporates when it's hot. So if you water it from the bottom, it doesn't evaporate as quickly.
Yeah, this is better because it saves water instead of like you have to use it for most plants you have to use a lot of water, but then this we could just save water and then use that water for more stuff.
The kids are absolutely amazing. Our vision is to have a space that kids can apply what they learn to solve real-world problems, and we have named it our learning habitat. And we want them to take that technology and apply it in a setting that they can learn about real life and where their food comes from and how to be sustainable.
So our students here at Sycamore Canyon, we try to encourage them to have what we call voice and choice, which means we give them opportunities to see what they would like to focus on. So what we do is we say, hey, we have this garden outside. Can you identify a problem? What do you see as the problem? So that's their voice and their choice. They get to choose what to do to try to help solve it.
It gives us hands-on learning activities so that it's easier for us to understand the environment so that in the future we can take care of it instead of just destroy it because we never actually learned about it.
The dreamer lives in you and me.
Wow, the last girl is so well-spoken, isn't she? So I want to repeat the last interviewee's statement. She said it gives us hands-on learning activities so that it makes it easier to understand the environment. So in the future, we can take care of it instead of destroying it because we never learned about it. And we know knowledge is power. So when we raise awareness of these issues like the environment, the climate, nutrition, and where food comes from, and the benefits it gives us, kids will see that through hands-on activities like gardening, which is such a great all-encompassing activity. So you can tie gardening to standards-based learning as well. Sorry, this might be the last video, but this is a great example from a school that ties in standards into their curriculum, and you can see how well the students respond to this activity.
Materials. You can look on the ground, in the beds. Students are really engaged. They're excited to learn about the gardens. And the impact on the students has been amazing. And it just really lets them explore and use that curiosity to learn.
We built our first garden over in first grade, taking out a space that was where people dumped furniture. And we just slowly changed one area at a time each year.
We started a couple of years ago by putting in a few beds, just planting with the kids and trying to figure out gardening and working it into the curriculum. We went through the Nevada State Standards and the Next Generation Standards, and we wrote curriculum based on that. You'll see the art teacher out there with the kids. There's math, science, there's everything. When they're working in the gardens, it's all tied to our standards.
We want to be able to feed our worms, and we want to be able to add to our compost. We typically do a garden lesson at least 2 to 3 times a month. Part of our science curriculum is looking at plants and nature, so we thought it was a great asset for students to learn how they can reuse scraps and soil and worms to help make our soil better.
An organic thing is something that humans eat and then they throw away, but they can actually put it in a compost or in the dirt. I think this is more important than math and science because they're helping nature grow.
Initially, I just wanted my students to know that vegetables don't come from the grocery store. They come from the soil, from the ground. They grow, and it's a process. And to do a lesson once in a classroom with a lima bean in the window is not enough.
We're checking if the worms, they pooped or they peed, We check it by this. We need to pee so we can water our flowers and make them grow more.
Students are actually in the gardens every day, even if it's only briefly. So sometimes it's something, just a 10-minute activity where they're maintaining.
I check to see if the soil is moist by dipping my finger in. The last thing I have to do is turn the compost bins around. I gotta see if there's any problems, and if there is, I check off yes, and then one day maybe I'll have a garden of my own.
It's like they're running around, but they're really not. They have very specific jobs, and they're planting, and they're harvesting, and they're checking for bugs, and they're collecting seeds. They're planning farmers markets so that we can sell the produce and make money to fund the gardens. The enthusiasm for learning is just incredible. You can start by planting a few seeds in a pot. The kids, they'll respond.
Come on under the tree. Is it organic?
They get to go outside and teach lessons in a different way than what they would have had they been inside their classroom. There's a purpose for being outside and in the garden.
That was such a great example of classroom connection and just seeing from start to finish how the students maintain it, and they each have like different roles in it. Now cafeteria connections, some cafeteria connections that we can make with gardening include farm to school, taste test during career day, or you can have the taste test be an opportunity to innovate the menu and get immediate feedback from the students. You saw the clip earlier at Lenox Middle School of the students trying the watermelon. So that was part of a taste test on the menu that can be added. You can further incentivize students to try new items with stickers for the younger kids, or older kids would like it too. But Make Today a Try Day stickers can be ordered directly from the USDA for free. Links will be provided in the resource document. You could feature a new or unique fruit or vegetable that hasn't been on the menu yet as Harvest of the Month. For example, menu developers can reach out to their local farmer and ask for any varieties of oranges, such as Caracara or blood oranges, to be featured, because it's familiar enough for the students, but yet different for them to be exposed to the different types and varieties of fruits and vegetables. We can also tie gardening back to the community. So I mentioned Ron Finley in the beginning, our gangsta gardener, earlier in this session, and highlighting the work in his community. He's in Southern LA. So here's another example of agriculture in the community from the Los Angeles County Food Policy Council and their Farm Fresh LA program. Farm Fresh LA is a program that connects urban growers to multi-generational corner store owners of color so that CalFresh shoppers can purchase affordable, locally grown produce bundles within their communities. So it's a great tie-in from my last session when we were discussing food access, right? So when customers make a $5 CalFresh purchase, they receive a free bundle of produce valued at $20, which I think is a steal. So by partnering with LAFPC's Farm Fresh LA, stores are able to source locally grown produce and offer it directly within communities most affected by the food deserts.
Given the system that exists, healthier foods are more expensive, but it's food that we all need.
A group of high school students came in one day and asked me if they could evaluate my store. I said, sure, why not? They started kind of opening up my eyes, and that's what got me connected with the Healthy Neighborhood Market Network. And from there, we started working together, bringing better produce into the community. Quite frankly, I think Farm Fresh LA kind of set the standard. It allows all of the farmers and the corner stores, you know, to kind of unite.
I just took the risk. Yeah, I like taking risks like that. But especially if it's offering anything healthy to people.
It's worth it to create these healthy options, or at least experiment with them and see what works.
It was a good program. You spend $1 on your EBT food stamps, and then you get a free bag of produce that's like locally sourced, organic. People here, they're price sensitive, especially if they're on assisted living, EBT, and stuff like that. It helps.
And I can imagine, especially during the pandemic, people were struggling even more.
During the pandemic, we had supply chain issues. Actually, LAFPC were like the only ones to come through, and were able to give me the produce on time, every time. It was actually relieving because, yeah, it was a struggle to keep my shelves stocked with anything, actually.
And the fact that that supply chain was so local, it seems like made a huge difference. Yeah. Farmers are down here. The aggregators are 15, 20 minutes away at max. Right. Yeah. Everything is here.
The supply chain, again, does not have to be complex or difficult. Through Farm Fresh LA, we were able to develop really strong case studies. What are some of the essential ingredients that made this work?
We see a lot of familiar faces every single day. Most of the people that are out here in this community, they've been here since my grandfather started the business. Now it's their grandkids, you know, who are shopping here.
Here in the community, I feel like the person I am because of so much of the wisdom and advice and love I've received.
I mean, everyone benefits off of each other. It's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. I want to offer them things like Farm Fresh LA. Yeah, the community has given me so much.
Food inaccessibility should not be a thing. I just want everybody to be able to have access to the right types of food.
When you're actively having a conversation about the food that you're eating, you're building a culture.
So I love that in one of the video, Andy Lee, one of the corner store owners, described this symbiotic relationship between the local farmers and the community. So you can see that it's all interconnected and coming together, all my sessions coming through, right? So the program began in 2021 and 33,000 pounds of fresh produce have been distributed through this program to date.